Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedyadravitam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Namadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Namadeva Deva. So in doing our Shanti mantra, I'll do my best to chant a line and then you repeat it after me. Om Vang Me Manasi Pratishtita. Om Vang Me Manasi Pratishtita. Mano Me Vachi Pratishtitam. Mano Me Vachi Pratishtitam. Aviravir Edhi. Aviravir Edhi. Vedasya Mani Ishtaha. Vedasya Mani Ishtaha. Sutram Me Ma Pra. Sutram Me Ma Prahasi. Sutram Me Ma Prahasi. Anena Dhitena. Anena Dhitena. Ahoratram Sandadhami. Ahoratram Sandadhami. Ritam Vadishyami. Ritam Vadishyami. Satyam Vadishyami. Satyam Vadishyami. Tanmamavatu. Tanmamavatu. Tadbhaktaramavatu. Tadbhaktaramavatu. Avatu mam. Avatu mam. Avatu bhaktaram. Avatu bhaktaram. Avatu bhaktaram. Avatu bhaktaram. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Okay, it's coming. It's a toughie. So where are we in our text?
It's chapter 1, section 3, number 1.
Section 3, mantra 1?
Yes, section 3, number 1.
Chapter 1, section 3, verse
Number
1.
1, first mantra.
Sa ikshyate me na lokascha lokapalascha anam ebhya srijapiti. He, the Lord, said, here now are the worlds and the guardian angels, devatas. Let me now create food for them.
So again, we're having this allegory about how the world comes about. And we look at it macrocosmically and microcosmically. The creation of the macrocosm, the jagat, the phenomenal world, and the individual. So now comes the idea of the creation of it was food, right?
Yeah.
Food. And so what is it that we feed on? Now, there are many, many ways of approaching it. The one I like to say is we must never forget that life feeds on life. Now, ideally, we try to only feed on non-sentient life, but in a sense, all life is sentient, including vegetable life. But animals and people are a higher order of consciousness, supposedly. So, people may say elephants and whales are more evolved than we. I do not know. But the deeper meaning of this is we're talking about the whole phenomenon of what makes the world go round. It is desire. And we have words like kama, craving, trishna, thirsting, spriha, longing. But also here we can say hunger. My hunger for experience, my hunger for sensation, hunger for the people, places, things, and conditions that I think are going to bring me happiness, are going to satisfy my hunger, not just the physical hunger of food, wrong hand, but my mind's hunger. And so what comes into being after that? All the stuff. Now, in ancient peoples, it was the stuff that was there already in nature. The fruit of the trees, the grasses in the ground, go kill the woolly mammoth, etc. You and I, we get to, in many ways, create the food, the objects of desire. Cars, jewelry, clothing, power, prestige, the approval of others, my political choices as opposed to someone else's. This is all, in a sense, food for satisfying the hunger of the mind in the world of ignorance. This is what we all do. So it's a metaphor. It's mystic symbolism. Any thoughts on this? Next mantra.
Sopyo bhyata pattabhyo vitaptabhyo murti rajayata yavai sa murtir rajayatannam vetat. He brooded over the waters, and from the waters thus brooded over sprang a material form. Verily, that material form which was so produced is indeed food.
Yes. So we here brood over the waters macrocosmically. That's how the Lord, through Sankalpa. Remember, water here is a great metaphor for consciousness itself. But for you and me, the brooding over the waters to create the food are the creative ideas that you and I come up with. So, for example, Wendy, you're over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
She has been working on the perfect crust for a tart. Haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been working at this?
Oh, months.
Yeah.
Not full time, but yeah, It's been my,
But
Yeah.
it started with an idea. I mean, how long have you lived without creating the perfect pie crust?
many, many years.
Yeah. But something in you said, I want to do the perfect pie crust or tart crust. What do you call it?
Tart crust.
Tart crust.
Mhm.
And what did you start to do?
Play around with it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this is the brooding over the waters. You think about it, you experiment, and you literally made food for us. But for example, you two, your idea of creating this new startup, that's brooding over the waters. So this is how it happens. Sankalpena, by means of imagination. By means of imagination. Now, we talked about way in the beginning in our Shanti mantra. Let my speech be in my mind, let my mind be in my speech. And Punit helped us understand the deeper meaning of the word mantra. Tell us again what tra means.
It's a vehicle. So we get words like ratra, which is a chariot. We get like English words like travel, transportation,
Traffic.
traffic.
So manas is mind, tra is the vehicle. So a mantra is the vehicle for the mind. Isn't that an incredible understanding of it? But deeper is our understanding. The mantra, the vehicle for the mind, something happens to that. Simple thing. Close your eyes, visualize an elephant. Now open your eyes. So you imagine the elephant. That's a very weak sankalpa, a thought. Your mind went forward in an elephant. The law of sankalpa is this. Any thought, image, intention, wish, will that is consistently maintained, that is not contradicted or conflicted, tends towards grossification. There's that old saying in the West. Thoughts are, how does it go? Thoughts are things and they have wings. So it is, you hear interesting things from the Master Jesus. Whatsoever you ask, believing, so shall you receive. Any human endeavor starts with creative imagination. And then it moves into what we might call manifestation. What yoga would say is grossification, meaning that image slows down in vibration and we experience it as a material thing. So you and I have a limited ability to reenact the whole creative process of the infinite. The same way Ishvara brings about black holes and supernovas and galaxies is exactly what happens for you bringing about your tart crust. It's not really any different. The difference is Ishvara doesn't need an instrument like a physical body to do it. You and I do. Is that making sense? So here it's the brooding over the waters. It's thinking about it. It's coming up with this deepest understanding of mantra, the vehicle for the mind, which then goes forth and becomes the forms of the world, my food, my objects of desire, that satisfy the hunger of the mind. It's beautiful, beautiful imagery. Everything in the world comes about by this means. Macrocosm, microcosm, as above, so below. Next mantra.
Tadena srishtam parang tyajighan sat tadva chaji grish shaktanna shakno dvacha grihitum yadhyai natvacha grihaishyadi grihaish yadabhivya ritya aivanya yasta. Then the food so created sought to flee away. He, the first embodied being, tried to catch it by speech, but he could not catch it by speech. Were he able to seize it by speech, we would have been satisfied by merely talking of food.
Yes. So the objects cannot be experienced simply by talking about them. So going back to your tart crust, you can't just talk about it. The tart crust flees away. It's not sufficient. It's not sufficient. So while speech is important, it's not adequate. And in fact, many people in the creative process feel the need to restrain speech. I have a very dear friend who's a writer. She's written something like 70 books so far. She's a ghostwriter. And she started to write her own fiction and self-help stuff. But when I talk to her, she won't tell me what she's working on. Because she says that diffuses the energy. To talk about it diffuses it.
I've also found that for me personally, when I have these beautiful ideas, the more, and this could be a product idea that the world needs or could use, the more I talk about it, the more it rewards me and the less it actually happens.
Now, the opposite idea, all of you, some of you youngsters don't remember, Werner Erhard.
Yes.
And he used to talk about an idea whose time has come. And by sharing an idea and an intention, we build a group mind. I think the clearest example was same-sex marriage. You know, it went from, we won't talk about it, it doesn't work, it's not what a marriage is. Then all of a sudden, it was in the group mind, in the zeitgeist is what the philosophers call it, the spirit of the times. And poof, all of a sudden, it's an idea whose time has come. So in some ways, sharing ideas can help things come into being. But like Mali says, sometimes it's best not to talk about it. But the point the Upanishad is making, we need more than just speech. Next mantra.
Tatpranena jighrichat tanna shakno pranena grihitum sa yadhyaina pranena graishyada vipranya hevanya matrakyasta. He sought to catch it food by breath, smelling. He could not seize it by smelling. If he had caught it by smelling, then everyone would have been satisfied indeed by merely smelling food.
Yes. So back to our tart crust. So what do you have? You have flour. What else? Butter. What else do you put in it?
Flour, butter, salt, and ice and water. That's it.
Okay. So you have all these ingredients out in bowls on top of the counter.
Mhm.
Does that work?
No.
Can smell good,
Mhm.
but that doesn't do it. Doesn't do it. So we're talking about how the senses, by and large, are insufficient. That's not all that we need. Next mantra.
Taccha tachakshusha jigrikshakta tanna shakno chakshusha grihitum sa yadhyaina chakshusha grihyeshad drishtva hayvanamatra pasyat. He wished to catch it by the eyes. He could not consume it by the eyes. Were he able to catch it by the eyes, everyone would have been indeed satisfied by merely seeing food.
So I assume at some point you went someplace and somebody served you a tart with a fabulous crust.
Mhm.
Did that happen?
Yeah.
And you looked at that fabulous crust. And was that sufficient?
No.
Doesn't work. Not enough. Same idea. Next mantra.
Tachno trinatri jikshata tanna shaknot shotrena grihitum sa yadhyaina shotrena grihyeshat shrutva hevannamastra pasyat. Excuse me. He wished to catch it by the ears. He could not catch it by the ears. Were he able to catch it by the ears, everyone would have been indeed satisfied by merely hearing about food.
So you can put your ear down. I suppose when you bake it, it makes a bubbly noise. Well, the idea is the senses. What he's going through is all the senses. And we're going to see what you need. He's going to again take us to what's essential. So the ears can't do it. Going
Tatvacha jigrikshata tanna shaknot tvacha grihitum sa yadhyaina tvacha graheshyat sprishtva hevannamastra pasyat. He wished to catch it by the skin, but could not seize it by touch. Were he able to seize it by the skin, everyone would have been indeed satisfied by merely touching the food.
and that's the same. Going on.
Tanmanasa jidrikshat tanna shaknon manasa grihitum sa yadhyaina manasa graheshyat yatva hevanyamastra yasat. He wished to catch it by the mind. He could not catch it by the mind. Had he caught it by the mind, everyone would have been indeed satisfied by merely thinking of food.
And we've always had that one. How many of our projects only exist in our minds? Going back to our idea of sankalpa, what is our problem? Today I want to do project A. Tomorrow, I don't know whether I can do project A. Maybe that won't work out. So any sankalpa that is consistently maintained, we're inconsistent. I want to do project A. Oh no, I won't be able to do it. It's impossible. Project B is better. Conflicted and contradicted. Frequently, that's the state of our minds. We use the mind to disempower the mind. Too many of us have the thought, I'm impotent, I can't, I'm insufficient. We've talked about many times back when you were doing the Learning Guild, dealing with these youngsters who had imposter syndrome. Tell us what imposter syndrome is.
When you think you're an imposter and you don't have the abilities to do what you want to do.
Yeah. That gets in the way. Conflicted, contradicted sankalpa. I want to be a computer programmer. Intention. I can't do it. I'm not sufficient. I'm an imposter. Conflicted and contradicted. Next mantra.
So it sounds like the underlying feeling is the fear of failure in some way.
That's a big one. Fear of failure. A lot of it is messages we get from family. One of the sankalpas that was going on in our last election. America is ready for a woman president. But a lot of other people may have had the sankalpa. Women can't lead. They're insufficient. You know? Conflicted sankalpa. But I'm sure you're absolutely right. Fear is a big one on a personal basis.
So it's like better to not try than to try and fail.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the
Yes,
psychological.
that's certainly,
Yeah.
but it's not true.
Right.
It's not true.
And maybe the messages, which is, the fact of being loved is based on not failing. Right? Like, so if you're failing in some way, you're like not worthy of love.
Now, see, I have a slogan that I like to tell people. Anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Because if it's hard and you've not done it before, guess what's going to happen when you start out?
Not going to be very good at it.
Exactly.
I love that so much about my spiritual practice because I so often have doubt about my ability.
This is why there's so much power in being steadfast. Keep on keeping on.
I love you saying you're a crappy yogi, that's like my mantra. I'm a crappy yogi, but I don't give up.
Yes, yes. And that's with anything in life. You will create the ideal. You're coming very close. I can testify. Next month.
Tachit Shrena Jidriksha Tanna Shaknochit Shrena Grihitum Sayadye Na Chinchne Na Griheshya Dvisrijya Hevanya Matra Pasyat. In the above, he wished to catch it by the generative organs. He could not catch it by the generative organs. Had he caught it by the generative organ, everyone would have been indeed satisfied by merely by emission.
Yes. I don't think we need to go into that. And as Swamiji used to say, and I used to love this, if sex were satisfying, we'd only do it once. That's not the answer here. Going on.
Tadapane na ji grishat tada vayat seshan nasya griho yadvayu ranar yurva esha yadvayuhu. Then he sought to grasp it with his outbreath. He consumed it. Therefore, apana alone is that which catches food, And indeed, the apana vayu is the chief cause in supporting life by food, annayu.
So the idea here is on a literalistic form, we have to consume it. We digest it, then we excrete the remnant of it, the apana. That's how we eat. From the standpoint of metaphor, it is the complete experience of an object of desire. And then what happens after we experience the object?
Bliss.
Hmm?
Bliss, you feel happy.
We get a moment of bliss, but what happens to after that?
Then we're done with it.
Done with it,
On to the next one.
we either need to repeat it or go on to something else. We've consumed it. Just like if a tart, even it's the best crust in the world, were really satisfying, I'd only need to eat once. So apana is the vayu of elimination. So this is what happens in the world. I have hunger, a metaphor for desire. I eat the food. I go after the objects of desire. I consume them in some way. I eat them. And then what happens? Metaphorical poop. Done. And I need to repeat the experience. Meaning the whole karma chakra, the cycle of desire, action, fulfillment, elimination of the old, on to a new one. Next mantra.
Shouldn't it be the in breath though? Like, isn't the in breath responsible for satisfaction and the out breath is the excretion process?
That's not what the mantra says, though. Now, if you read the Recognition Sutras as translated by, can't remember his name now, the Westerner.
Christopher Wallace.
Yes. He defines apana as the incoming breath. And that's also said in Chandogya. But a good friend of mine, D.C. Rao, says actually it's the devas who see the outgoing breath, the apana. They breathe it in. So our exhale is their inhale. Their exhale is our inhale. So there are different ways of approaching it. I'm just going to talk about how basically we consume an object of desire, and after we've digested that experience, it's gone. The essential impermanence of everything. That's my take on it. Again, the beauty of the Upanishads, maximum meaning with minimum words. This is perfectly valid understanding what you've brought up. All right, next one.
Sa ikshata katham invadam madvate syaditi sa ikshata katarena prapadhya iti sa ikshata yadi vachabhi vyahritam yadi pranenabhi pranitam yadi chakshusha drishtam yadi shrotrena shrutam yadi tvacha sprishtam yadi manasa dhyatam yadhyapanenabhyapanitam yadi shishrena visrishtam atha koham iti. He, the creator, thought, how can all these remain without me? So he pondered, by which of the two ways shall I enter the organs? He again thought, if speaking be done by speech, smelling by the nose, seeing by the eyes, hearing by the ears, touching by the skin, thinking by the mind, eating by the apana, peristaltic movements, emitting by the regenerative organs, then
I
who
think
am
I would call it peristaltic. That means digestion.
Yeah, peristaltic movements, emitting by the regenerative organs, then who am I?
Koham. So the metaphor here is, what is the life principle that allows the phenomena of eating, satisfaction of desire, the perception of the phenomenal world? Obviously includes the mind in this. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, and the mind. The mind is a sense organ in a sense. Koham. Who am I? So that great meditative practice that was extolled by Ramana Maharshi. He takes it literally right out of the Aitareya Upanishad. Who am I? What is the essence of that Brahman? Now, Brahman itself doesn't ask the question. You and I, it is the subtle intellect that asks the question. But this is poetry. It's poetry. So the way to discover that adorable Brahman is through this question, this Atma Vichara, this inquiry into the nature of the self. Going on.
So is he implying all of these processes are automatic and they happen without my, I guess.
You don't think
control?
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do? You and I, we move through the world trying to get happy by satisfying our desires. That's what we do. We eat the objects, the people, the situations, meaning we experience them in order to feed the hunger, which is temporary. Next one.
Sa etameva simanam vidar yaitaya dwara prapadhyata saisha vidrir tirnam dwastat detannadanam tasya traya avastha straya swapnaha ayamavastho yamavastha iti. Then he opened the suture of the skull and entered by that door. This is the door named as the Vidriti or cleft. This is the place of bliss, Nandana. He has 3 dwelling places and 3 conditions of sleep, dream. This is a dwelling place, this is a dwelling place, this is a dwelling place.
So it doesn't mean that, oh, I need to cut open my head to find Brahman, which is up there. It is metaphor, but it is also a reference to the teaching of the chakras and Kundalini. Kundalini is not an Italian pasta. So the ancients, through observation, discovered for all of us, there are these 7 energy centers in the body. Each one of them, as it were, governs a dimension of our psycho-spiritual experience. So the root chakra, Muladhara, the base of the spine, is our survival energy center. That's what drives the sense for the body to continue to exist. The second chakra governs the genitalia, our instinctive desire to have sex. It governs also procreation, but it's more just want to get laid, to have sex. We do get the desire for progeny in that energy center. I want to make babies. Third chakra, the solar plexus, is our psychic antenna. This has to do with the way we sense energy fields among people. This governs all our basic social interactions, our need for approval, our need for attention, our need for transactional love. I love you, now you love me. Fourth chakra, the Hridaya, the heart, the Anahata chakra. We talk about it being the center of love, but it's different than the third chakra. Most of our relationships, even with significant others, for most people, it's third chakra. Fourth chakra is that center where we begin to experience real spiritual love. What is the definition of spiritual love? When I genuinely wish the well-being of the other. It has nothing to do with wanting something from them. In Greek, we have at least 3 names for love. There may be more, I can't remember now my Greek. But the ones that are used most commonly, philios, brotherly love, good friends. Eros, erotic love. But agape comes into the Latin caritas. From there we get the English word charity. Usually in modern times today, we think of charity of giving money to the poor. It's much, much greater than that. It means the kind of love where I see myself in other beings, I see God in other beings, and I'm inclined to serve them with no thought of return. It's where our real spirituality starts, with the Anahata chakra. The throat chakra governs expression and creativity. So your desire to create the perfect tart crust, that's throat chakra. You have a vision of something new you want to create. This is where artists and dancers and musicians live, is from the throat chakra. We experience sometimes when you have a feeling and you can't express it or won't express it, you get choked up. Who's ever had that feeling? That's blockage in the throat chakra. Ajnana. Ajna chakra, isn't that it? Ajna. Ajna, long A?
Yeah.
Ajna chakra, third eye. This is the seed of much spiritual wisdom. The Master Jesus said this outrageous thing: if thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be filled with light. Most of us only see with 2 eyes. good, evil, right, wrong, just, unjust, but to see with the third eye is to see it's all God. This is the mystical meaning behind when Lord Shiva opens his third eye. What happens? Universe is turned to ashes, meaning I no longer see the world of duality. And then the 1,000-petal lotus of round. This opens. This is when self-realization, when enlightenment takes place. What is the essence of that? The direct knowledge of myself, nature. Chidananda Rupam. I am bliss consciousness. So this is the metaphor. Brahman doesn't really go into the head. And when the yogi has the final exit from the body, out the crown chakra, when you hit the eject button, udhana, that's where it exits. Most of the rest of us exit through the third chakra.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Most of the rest of us leave through the third chakra, through the navel.
Lead?
But the enlightened sage
Die.
Leave.
leave,
Ah,
die
got it.
when the body falls. So here's what he's talking about. So what we're going to talk about is two ways of entering the body: entering through the feet, entering through the head. This is all metaphor. And what he's going to be dealing with is these two experiences of being a person. The vast majority of us, I think I'm my body. I think I'm this body standing on the earth. So my sense of identity is Jiva Bhavana. I think I'm a person. Real self. Aham Brahmasmi. All right, so this is the metaphor that we're going to be using. Next mantra, please.
Sa jato bhutanya bhivyaikyata kime hanyam vavadishyadati sa etameva purusham brahma tata mama pasyatta idam adarsham iti. Having been born, he looked around on beings. He gazed around upon the creatures. How should he speak of any other? What else is there besides the Atman for me to name? He could not name anything beside himself. He saw verily this very Purusha, the Brahman, overspreading all. With wonder, he said to himself, "Oh, I have seen this."
So this is this deep understanding of what is the phenomenal world. Truth is, Sarvam Kalvidam Dhamma. All this, Sarvamidam, Kalu, verily, is Brahman, which is Atman. I am Atma Brahma. There is nothing else to see out there but myself, the self. Whatever appears as name and form, only God. This is the way God sees. This is the way the woman and the man of realization sees. This is the practice we're invited to take up. My deeply rooted conviction that the world of name and form is solid and separate from me, inherently joy-giving or misery-producing, is just habit. We start by meditating on the truth as revealed in the Upanishad. All that I see in this world of name and form is nothing but the Atman. Next one.
Tasmat didandro namendro namedandro tavena tamid andra santam mindra ityachakshate parokshena paroksha priya ivahi devaha paroksha priya ivahi devaha iti prathamo adhyaya tritiya khandaha. Therefore, he is called Idandra. Idam it, dra seeing, it seeing. Idandram verily is his name. Though he is Idandra, he is indirectly called Indra, for devas are fond of the cryptic indirect names. The gods are indeed fond of being called, as it were, by indirect names.
So we get the word Indra, the Lord, the ruler of all the gods, meaning the one who directly apprehends the phenomenal world. So when consciousness, as it were, illumines, enlivens the equipment, enters the body, it takes on the apparent aspect of Sakshi, the witness. We get what we call the triputi, the triple factor: knower, knowing, and know. I am the seer of objects. I am the hearer of sounds, etc. I am the feeler of emotions. I am the thinker of thoughts. So when consciousness operating through the equipment takes place, it becomes that Indra. The other word we get from the same root is Indriya. What are the Indriyas?
Sense organs.
Sense organs, yes. The illuminator, the Lord, the ruler of the senses themselves. So it is consciousness appearing as Chid Abhasa, the reflection of consciousness, caught in the web of thought, as Swamiji says, which then appears as the individual. Now, the true nature of the individual is Brahman. but most of us do not know. All right, is that the end of this chapter?
Yes.
Let's start the next one.
Dvitiya Adhyaya, Chapter 2, Section 1, Prathama Khandaha, Apakramantu Garbhinyah. Purusheha va ayamadito garbho bhavati yadet dreta tadetat sarvebhyo mebhyaste jaha sambhutatmanyayet vatmanam bibhardat bibharti tadhyata striyam sinchat yathain narjannayati tadasya prathama janma. The pregnant woman may please retire.
Say it louder.
The pregnant woman may please retire. That's, I think, the
Oh
section.
yeah, we have. So when you get into the highest Vedanta, there is a custom that women, and especially pregnant women, aren't supposed to be hearing this stuff. It is vestigial misogyny in the culture. Pay it no heed.
Okay, sound and I gotta
Huh?
go. Sound and I gotta go.
You're not pregnant, are you?
No, no,
Are you pregnant?
no.
But I am.
You gotta go.
All right, next one.
This is the, I haven't read it. So, in a man, verily, this one becomes at first that germ which is called the seed. That which is semen is the essence of strength and vigor drawn from all his limbs. In the self, indeed, one bears the self. When he pours this into a womb, he causes it to be born. This is its first birth.
So I guess they didn't want the ladies to hear about what happens in a man's body when we're doing the mufti mufti. It's like you don't know. So again, the metaphor here is this is how life creates life. Even down to the level of plants. You know, sex still happens. Certain plants are hermaphroditic, they have able to pollinate themselves, but the vast majority you have female plants, male plants, the pollen has to go do its thing. Fishes, and of course, human beings. So this becomes the generative process for the recreation of beings on the world. Going on. Women can't hear this because it might excite them, I think is the problem.
Tatstriya atma bhutam gacchati yatha swamangam tatha tasmadenam na hinnasti syasyai tamatmanam tragatam bhavayati. That seed becomes one with the woman, just as a limb of her own. Therefore, the fetus does not injure her. She nourishes the self of her husband that has come to her, that has thus come to her.
So the ancients did not understand that actually there's an egg inside that gets fertilized. Here they're thinking it's only the semen of the man that creates this being. A little bit of male ego stuff. But the idea here is this incredible miracle that a being is nurtured and grows inside of a woman's body. Great miracle of life. Here is as intimate as if it were a limb of my own body, a arm or a leg or something like that. something that's so physical, making love, making a baby. It's one of the great miracles. And this is what happens. A new life to come into the world. Going on.
सा भावयत्री भावयित्वा भवति तं स्त्री गर्भं बिभर्ति सोग्र एव कुमारं जन्मनो ग्रेधिभावयति स यत्कुमारं जन्मनोग्रे दिभाव्यत्यात्मनामेव तद्भावत् यत्येषां लोकानां सन्तत्या एवं सन्तता हीमे लोका तदस्य द्वितीयं जन्मः. Since she, the mother, becomes the nourisher of her husband's self within her, she also becomes fit to be well nourished. The woman bears him, her husband, as an embryo in her womb. He, the father, nourishes the child before and after its birth. In that he nourishes the child from its birth onwards, but he nourishes his own self for the continuation of these worlds. Thus are these worlds continued. This is his second birth.
Yes. So the idea is, because it's patriarchal, of course, the woman does all the work, but the father thinks that I will be reborn second time through my child, my son. And this is an extension of my ego, my own self. But the deeper meaning is this is how the human race and all beings propagate. And one of the things that's so amazing, if you talk to anybody who's a new parent, one of the most common things that they'll say is, I've experienced a dimension of love that I never knew existed. It is so intense. And people say, don't miss it. So incredible. Taste of the infinite. It's experience of love. And we love our progeny. Both parents in our modern era, it's not just fathers, it's mothers too. One of the things we have to be mindful of, they really don't come from us, in spite of what the scripture is saying here. They come through us. Truth is, even from the very beginning, they have their own individuality. We are caretakers of them. And yes, genetically, they are from us. But from the standpoint of their personality, they come through us. Any thoughts on this? I think David's the only parent we have here. You probably had the experience, your child, she was her own person for probably a pretty early age, wasn't she? Yes. Developed this unique experience of personhood because we come in from other lifetimes. Okay, let's do one more and then we'll quit.
So syat yamatma punyebhya pratidhiyate athasyaya mitara atma kritakrityo vayogata priti sa ita Prayanneva punarjayate tadasya tritiya janma. That son, who is the father's own self, is put in the father's place for the performance of the is put in the father's place for the performance of the pious deeds. Then this other self of the boy, the father, having done its duties and having reached a ripe old age, dies away. After the death, indeed, he is born again. This is his third birth.
Yes. So the father then raises the child, the parents raise the child. The child takes on its own profession. Then when the parents reach the vanaprastha, the semi-retirement, they turn the business, the property over to the children, who then create their own family. Finally, the father and the mother, what happens? They die. But that's not the end. Here the Upanishad says we go to some loka, either punya loka or papa loka, depending on your state of mind. That's temporary. Eventually we return to manusha loka, the human realm, and we're born again. It's our third. So it's a poetic allusion to the process of reincarnation. Okay, we'll go into more of that next time. We'll end here today. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om